Welcome to Freeform Radio on the Freeform Network. You can follow us at Facebook at Freeform Network, on Twitter at FFR Podcast. Remember, send your questions and suggestions to ffnquestions@gmail.com. Recently, we did get a question asking when we're going to have another episode on questions and comments. We'll send some in, and then we'll gather them up and do that special episode that everybody loves. So hook us up, comments, like, hate, whatever, send them to ffnquestions@gmail.com, and we'll discuss it down in a future episode. So we're all here. This is Freeform Radio. We got Danny.
Yes, sir. The Bears played on Thursday, but it's still football Sunday, so hoping to get some football in after this recording.
And it's all good, Andy. We're back in at 'em. So another week of this pandemic. Only a couple more weeks to the election, so we're chugging along here, trying to make the best of it, Danny. And my beloved, everybody knows that I love college football and just regular football, kind of like you talked about there. I love it. I can watch football fucking weekend. I can watch it all fucking day. My wife's amazed I can watch so much fucking football.
Right.
So today, I was Norte Dame. Starting with the college, they haven't played literally in 3 weeks because they've had multiple football players test positive for COVID, and they had 14 players test positive, and then they had another 15. They were keeping quarantine because they did the tracing, and they were close to these other players, and they shut down everything. And it's they finally practiced. I think last week. They had a game yesterday, as the time of this recording. They played Florida State, and I think they started practicing a couple 4 days before the game, from my understanding. And it kind of showed when the game started. They were sluggish. They were making errors, but as the game went along, they got better. And they joined the conference this year. The NCAA is, I think, they have a little bit better control. Not control. I guess they have a better process of how they're handling all this, because Notre Dame had to cancel one game, but they're putting it back.
They got better SOPs.
Yeah, better standard procedures. Brian Kelly in his press conference leading up to this game, he's like, we have procedures and processes. I'm like, oh, they're using big corporate words there on how to handle all this, because I goosey with the mask and safe social distancing and all this. So I know other football teams, especially in college, in Texas, they had a lot of postponements there, and the SEC's been. I think they have had a couple positive, but nothing crazy. In Florida too, they had a couple teams postpone games, but overall, they seem to have a little bit better handle than the NFL. The NFL right now, it was great for 2 weeks, and all hell fucking broke loose.
Right.
Postponements and rescheduling, and then people are testing positives. Tennessee had a big. The Tennessee Titans had a lot of multiple days where people tested positive. Now the Patriots, they had another, as of this recording this morning on the 11th, they had another positive, and they postponed that game, or they're moving it down to Monday, Tuesday. I know last weekend too, they postponed some games, and they're moving it to Monday, Tuesday. They had or double nights. It's just I think with the NFL, what I'm seeing is they have a better testing procedure. It's just, I think Roger Goodell was anticipating that no one was going to get sick or something, or nobody was going to test positive, and just go from there. Yeah, in college football also, they had multiple head coaches test positive.
Right.
For COVID. In the NFL, that hasn't happened yet, and I wonder if they have processes and procedures to see if that happens, what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge college fan. I do glance at it every now and then, and to be honest, yesterday was like the first time I've seen college football in a while. I was happened to be watching. I can't even remember the names. That's how much I don't watch it.
Remember the colors?
Yeah, they were blue. They had like a lion or some kind of like almost looked like the Detroit Lions uniforms. Probably some tech college. I don't remember,
And what
but
channel?
it was uh 32, and it was
Oh,
around 3 o'clock, I
TCU. It
think.
was
Yeah,
TCU
uh,
versus
exactly. It was TC something.
Kansas State. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just glanced at it and watched it for a few minutes. I had the heater guy coming over and just doing some maintenance on my heater and just making sure everything's going to run well now that the winter's coming. So I wanted to. I was playing some games on my PlayStation, but then when he told me he was on his way, I'm like, I better turn this off. I don't want him to think I'm a nerd. I'll turn on some football on TV and look
Burner,
cool.
man. Come on, man.
So so I turned off the PlayStation, and I'm like, what is there cool to watch on TV? And there was some college football, so I'm like, I'll watch this while he's over, just so I could be within earshot of him calling out for me that he needs something. I don't typically like to hover over guys that are coming to work on the house and stand over their shoulder and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to
You
be doing.
should, man. It's fun. Be
Right.
that guy.
I'm
Embrace it.
I'm I'm sure they love it, Andy, if I did. But yeah, getting back to the college thing. So I was watching it. Anyways, I noticed that a lot of coaches didn't have their face thing. They kept it down on their chin.
Yeah.
And I thought it was weird, especially with some of the coach. There was a head coach talking to the quarterback because they pulled the quarterback out because he got a really bad sack and he wasn't performing, I guess. And so they pulled him out, and the coach in the video is shown talking to the player, and his mask is totally off. And I was just like, this is weird. I was actually thinking of the opposite of what you mentioned, but again, this is one instant that maybe all the rest of the times they are more strict, but it seemed like college football was kind of loosey goosey on these, protections for COVID. But it might be that the rest of the NFL or the rest of the NCAA is being a little more protective. But yeah, I did notice that when I was watching the game, that some coaches had face stuff, but they had it down on their chin. Where I know the NFL, they've actually even fined coaches for not wearing their head stuff. I think it was the Los Angeles
The
Raiders,
Saint, right? The Saints
the Saints
in
too. They got fined, yeah,
the
for
yeah.
pulling down their mask too often or something. I forgot what it was.
They weren't wearing them. I think that was the case. And like I said, the college football. I think in the because the teams that are playing are in the South, and they're a little bit more looser with that stuff. And
It's like
you
this is
do,
Texas. We got our own
yeah,
guns.
yeah. And but Texas had they had some issues with some of their schools and canceling games, and like northern names in the Midwest, they blame it that they weren't doing. They got it. Well, it got spread because supposedly they were having dinner as a group dinner, and people weren't spread out. And then supposedly that's how all that shit started. That's what they're claiming, but who fucking knows? And then so yeah, and down in the ACC, you see people more wearing masks and stuff. Up in like with Boston College and all that crap, Syracuse, uh, the blue states, they're wearing the mask more. But overall, early on, they ran into some issues like the first after the first 2 weeks, and then they kind of like streamlined it. Like they got testing and they're doing the contact tracing, and it seems to work. I mean, they haven't had no real postponements. I think they had like one, or if they do, they quarantine and they travel without the players and stuff. But it's nothing like you seen like the NFL.
Yeah, they're like scrambling now.
They're like you could see. I think their whole thing was testing, 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 and after the fact, it's just like they put everything on the teams to like, well, you guys this weekend I was reading that Belichick closed the Patriots facility since Friday or something or Thursday, and like he closed it down for 3 fucking days, and there's no practicing or anything. So how can you prepare in an NFL season like if you don't practice? And like I said, Notre Dame, they didn't play for 3 fucking weeks. Like that's the first time that in season that's ever happened. Like in 103 years, they were saying, and you saw that out in the field. It took them a while to adjust. I mean, they fumbled twice. They looked slow, and it took them a while. It took them a quarter and a half to get their bearings and get fucking rolling again. And that was my concern. I'm like, how are they gonna look, you know? And they still, I think they had everybody except like 3 players at the start. They said they weren't positive, but they had them just on quarantine just to be on the safe side. So, and that's a whole other thing. Like they quarantine people that don't have it, but I don't even know no more, man. You know, after what happened with the president, that motherfucker was in the hospital a couple of days and he's on. He's like, I'm good to go. And
Yeah, he's got that miracle
he gets
steroid shit or whatever it was.
That cocktail.
Yeah, he keeps calling it a cocktail. Got the mystery cocktail. Yeah.
So I'm wondering like what the college student in the NFL is doing, and like you see people like the Bears had a practice squad test positive. Did you read that? And you're like, okay, so how's this fucking work? Like if they had full contact practice, like the fuck, you know, who did he touch and all this other shit, and like, or it is what it is. I mean, I don't fucking know. I'm shocked that early on to where we are now during this pandemic, how they're handling all this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if you're aware, but is the NCAA, are they doing the bubble thing like the NBA?
No, they're students. They're college students. So
I don't give a shit, man. They have scholarships, so they're paying
for their. They gotta go to class and shit.
Right. No, I understand that, but I'm saying, are they doing like maybe a modified version? Like something where they're isolating the players and keeping them isolated from the rest of the group.
They're allowing fans. I mean, no, I mean they're not doing a bubble. Like, you know how baseball went into the bubble for certain playoffs, right. The ACLS and the NCLS, and now the World Series.
Yeah, and the NBA as well. They did the bubble.
Yeah, the NBA
thing.
For the final. Yeah, they've been in the bubble for a while. But yeah, they.
And why don't you explain the bubble for some people that maybe don't know?
They go in there and then you don't leave that area. I think ESPN, who broadcasts the basketball, they fucking been in the bubble too. They're employees, so they're not fucking or nothing, just giving hand jobs or I don't know what the fuck.
Wow, I didn't think about that, but yeah, the coaches, the refs, they would have to be on there too, right?
Yeah. So there was early on players sneaking in women and shit like that, and they fired them or they told them to go home. If you get injured, they're like, you're leaving the bubble and you're not coming back. So yeah, that's what they mean by that. You're seeing the same people over and over, and you're not leaving. I think they were like in Walt Disney World or some shit or somewhere in Florida, and then everything is done in those facilities.
Yeah, it's got to be tougher for maybe like a college student. I mean, you're in your 20s. It's like your prime party time to go do your shit. And now, to be stuck. I know that I did read a few articles that the teams were stressing to the players to not go to parties, to just hang out with other players in your team, but don't hang out with anybody else that's not part of the team.
Some of the players did talk about, like, we are somewhat in a bubble. He goes, I wake up, I work out with the same people. I take a majority of my classes are online, and then I just come back to my dorm, and then we just work out, and then like I rarely see anybody outside my teammates, and then a big chunk of their classes are, they're online, remote.
Right. Yeah, I know in the NFL, like you mentioned, it did impact a few teams, and even like Cam Newton, that's probably like the bigger name NFL guy that's gotten so far. And yeah, they had to reschedule the Patriots game, and they actually played without him and ended up losing. So, is that going to be more of a trend where they're just like, well, we can delay these games and push them out, but if there's enough players, they're going to have to play with whoever they have.
Well, yeah, I think that's what no one's talked about. And then, so they're talking about you might lose the bye week. Some teams have the bye, so you're going to play straight. And then they're talking about, well, in the playoffs, maybe we could, or the Super Bowl, we could push it out like a couple weeks to get everybody that chance or some shit to recuperate, like move the date on the Super Bowl and some of the playoffs because all they're concerned, I guess, Mike, from what I'm getting is they're concerned about we gotta have the teams play. They're adamant that they're like everybody's gonna play the same amount of fucking games. There's even been talking about like, well, can a team just forfeit? Like, what happens? Like if you test positive, can you just forfeit that week's game and all this shit? It counts as a loss, and like, yeah, there's all this stuff floating around, and I think when there's so much fucking money involved, like especially with getting the games and TV networks saying you need to put these games up, I think they're kind of scared. They're looking at it just financially, and I know they, safety and all that, but it's. I think they have the NFL has more to lose if played because I'm shocked that when people tested positive that some of these games were like we're just going to cancel these games or postpone them indefinitely for that week until we get zero people test positive. But you already seen multiple teams test positive for like more than one day. Like I said, the Titans I think tested positive for like 4 straight days. The Saints, I believe, the Patriots now, like that. It's just that's gonna be the new norm, I guess. And then I want their how they're handling it is just like, okay, we'll just play 2 games on Monday, or we might move it to Tuesday, and like, but like you're telling me nothing's gonna spread. You figured out who has it and who doesn't, in, like fucking 2 days or 3 days.
Right.
That's
No,
what I don't
it's
understand. So if no one tests positive, they get that rapid testing. So it's all good. I mean, doesn't it usually take like 3 days to figure if you have it or not? Or I mean, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I know there is that rapid one that now tells you in a matter of hours, but
Yes.
at the same time there is a sense of false positive and false negatives
Hmm.
where you might get the results and then it might not be correct. So, I mean, I'm sure they're doing the best they can with whatever tech they have as far as testing, but I would assume they test them a couple days before and then the day of, and if everything comes out fine, I'm sure they're moving forward with it.
Yeah, like with the NCAA, I know they have to do testing, and they'll know by Saturday morning, like who has. If you test negative, if you're playing, if you test positive or you're not, and then they put them in quarantine. Like they'll know by 9 o'clock Saturday morning because they do the test. I think Friday or something. They'll know by Saturday morning who's playing because you see a lot of that in college. Like, oh, this guy's not here. They're just saying he's inactive due to the virus. They're not saying if he has it. They're not saying if he doesn't. They're just saying he's inactive today. And then you down the road you'll see after if he tested positive or whatever the fuck. That's how they're handling it. They're not saying that person. They're just saying he's inactive due to the virus.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult moving forward, especially the NFL. I mean, I'm sure it's big money. Well, even NCAA, all that television money to play the games.
There's billions of dollars at stake here. Yeah.
Right. They got to play. They got to show something, and they got to put people out there. I wonder if it would get as bad as where if they're missing half the team, where they get some scabs to come up and fill up the roster so they can play a game.
Well, yeah. Again, they have they have the practice squad players and shit. And I know that NFL created something this year, the
Where they could
COVID
carry
list.
extra players.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then they have that COVID list or injured reserve COVID or something. So it's just interesting to see. Like I'm not. I feel like the NFL just like their biggest thing is like we got to get testing after what happens. They really didn't plan for that because I really think Goodell thought, oh yeah, we're gonna have like one or two and like that's it. And like I didn't think they expected this much. And I get it. Like 2 weeks in, people are gonna start getting it, and now you're gonna see how they're handling it after all this shit. That's what I want to see if they come up with a better game plan besides, okay, we're postponing the game and they're gonna play. We're gonna have another double header on Monday, or we're
Right.
gonna have one game Monday and one game Tuesday. I think that's more of a reaction to instead of planning.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult going forward to see what they can do, but I think a lot of people are understanding. I don't think there'd be too many people upset for canceled games. Um, a lot of these games are done without fans. There are very few games that actually have, like 20% capacity fans in the
Dude,
stadium. So,
college football is crazy. They have a shit ton of fans down in the South, Texas, Georgia, Florida. I saw a game yesterday, the Texas A&M game. That fucking stadium was packed and it was loud. I was like, holy shit. And it didn't look like they were safely distanced or whatever out. And I was telling my wife, like, look at this. See how many people are? They kept panning out. There's a shit. The stadium wasn't full, but there was, to me, there's a lot of people for this, what we're going through. And I was like, God damn, that's a lot of people at that stadium. I think they had
yeah,
30,000 people there. Yeah, because the stadium holds about like 90,000 or something.
that's got to be the other big part. Not only are the players transmitting it to their college students, but are the students getting it and passing it to the players?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know like Notre Dame, they only allow students and faculty and some of the members of the family of the football teams. Like that's it, and they have them spread out. Like the Georgia game, they had them like evenly every other row. They only allow like four people per section, and it was like straight lines, dude. It was like they took an effort to like have them socially distanced. So it was pretty. That one was pretty nice. It looked safe, but man, who fucking knows? But we'll keep talking about it as it goes. Hopefully, this shit gets better before it gets worse, and things will get worse before they get better. But being sports fans, we'll let you know what's going on. I mean, we love football, so but we can't watch football all the time. Danny, I see you did some outdoor activities. You went on a bike ride or something to that effect, or you enjoyed. We had some nice weather recently.
Yeah, yeah. It got a little warm up, before the fall winter weather kicks in. And then here in the Chicagoland area, we rarely even get anything of a fall. It mostly jumps in from summer to winter. So, yeah, these half decent days, went on a bike ride with Junior, and he's a little over 10, and I very cautious to let him ride his bike. I mean, usually when he rides his bike, me or my wife are sitting out in the front and we're watching him ride back and forth. And just recently, like in this last month or so, I told him that he could ride on the street, but he has to like hug the curb and stay really close. And it's only for a small section where my wife felt comfortable doing it. So, anyways, it was something where it was nice, and I'm like, buddy, do you want to go? And I'm like, and we'll ride our bikes on the street. We'll ride a little bit on the sidewalk, and then we'll do some street side riding. And he got really excited. He's like, we're gonna ride on the street, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna teach you a little bit about what to be careful for, and what to keep an eye out for when you're riding on the streets. So we're riding, explaining it to him a little bit, giving him some pointers, and so we enjoyed the day, man. We just went out. We actually rode for quite a bit, maybe like an hour. We were gone, so we rode up and down. Went to the park, went to another park after that. Then we went to Target after that, and then we just rode around, and we got quite a few miles in, and he seemed to enjoy it, man. He had a really good time seeing things that were different other than just riding in front, back and forth. So he really enjoyed it, and he wants to try to make it more of a regular thing now.
So, did you track it on an app or anything? See how many miles you guys actually rode on the bicycle?
I forgot actually, to be honest. I didn't mean to turn it on my phone just so that it could track in the background just to see how much we would accumulate. But yeah, I forgot to turn it on. So
So let me ask you this, Dan. You being an old man, did you wear a helmet?
no, neither of us wore a helmet, and actually, it was something that Alana brought up when we came back. Not so much me because I've never worn a helmet, not even as a kid or an adult.
Uh-huh.
I've never worn a
Uh-huh.
helmet, but she was a little worried when she saw that we were riding on the street when we were taking off from the house. And she said that she just kept worrying, it's like Junior doesn't got a helmet. What if he falls over and he hits his head on the curb and this and that? And so, I did have to talk to her and just let her know that, he could fall over on the sidewalk and just as much hurt himself. Uh, and maybe it is a little more dangerous on the street, but I'm like, it's a measurable um, caution that you can take, by going and riding on the street, as long as you have some general rules in your head to try to stay safe and go out there and
Okay. So yeah, I mean it's cool. I mean, you weren't like fucking driving down the middle of the street anyway, right? Like,
no, we were hugging the curb still,
yeah.
kind of riding around bikes. I was, trying to give them pointers like keep an ear out for cars. You got to be paying attention all the time. You got to look for people in cars that are parked and see just in case they're going to open their door, and then you're going to have to kind of sway out of the way and go into traffic. So, stuff like that.
Were you doing
Car.
wheelies?
No, no,
This is
I'm
how
too
you
old
do
for
it,
that.
son. Pay attention.
No, I'm too old for that. And even after the bike ride, my legs were kind of sore the next day.
Mm.
My ass was sore, man, from being on that seat. I'm not used
Uh-huh.
to just sitting down on that seat. So, but it was cool, man. It was a good experience to kind of go out there, show them something different, and get them to live more of stuff that I used to do as a kid without even questioning it. There was never even a hesitation on my parents, to just let me ride wherever I wanted. I would just ride to 7-Eleven and it'd be blocks away, past the main street or this and that. And it was never a big deal. I mean, us as kids, when we hung out, Andy, we would ride to the brickyard sometimes or to our friend's house. And it was just, regular just to ride.
Yeah, I mean it's just different. I mean, I don't think my parents ever once thought like, oh, he needs a helmet. None of my sisters didn't have helmets. I mean, it's just something you did. You just jump on your bike and go, and you fucking go to like other fucking towns and shit. You're like, it is weird. Like it's different from my neighborhood, and then yeah, drive to a convenience store or ride a bicycle to the convenience store or some shit, or go to somebody's house to play Nintendo.
Yeah. So no, it was a good time. He enjoyed himself. It was cool, man. It was a good feeling to take him out there, and I think he felt like very like adult, or like he's older, he's being treated older, and he I think he enjoyed the responsibility of, hey, this is a little dangerous, but as long as we're careful and we're keeping an eye and we're doing these few things here, we'll be okay. We'll be able to enjoy ourselves, and it was just a beautiful day. So we rode out, got to enjoy a few parks, and then stopped by Target afterwards just so we could window shop because he was keeping an eye out for something. I don't even remember what he was looking for.
Yeah,
Um,
it would have been cool, man, if you would have made a ramp. You would have jumped off of it and then tell your son not to do it because it's only what cool people do.
I
And
did
then
bring
he
it
would
up.
have tried to do it, and then you'd be in trouble.
I did bring up like let's make a ramp and we'll go over, but it scared him if anything. He's just like, no, I don't want to do that because I had told him the story of Saul when he jumped the ramp and how he fell over and skid the side of his face. And I think that story scared Junior. He's just like, I'm not, riding any ramps anytime soon. So yeah, I think I put the fear in him on that one.
Damn, man, that would have been cool, and you could have told him to record it. We could put a uploaded a video jumping the ramp, man.
No, I don't want to be part of those army fail videos or whatever where you're doing something dumb and you,
Make it go
you mess
viral, Dan. Come on, man.
mess up. Yeah. Nah, man, I'm too old for stuff like that. Like even there was a time that we had to um we were on the sidewalk, and there was somebody on the sidewalks, and then there was cars really blocking the driveway really bad, so we had to jump the curb. And I got off of my seat a little bit, but even just the shock of jumping off the curb, and I was just like, damn, I'm getting old. My shoulders hurt a little bit, and I was just like, dang, I can't do this shit like I used to when I was a kid.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, it used to be cool to jump a curb, and it wasn't a big deal.
So once in a while, top of the trucks, I look. I'm on top of a truck and I look down. I'm like, well, that jump's not too. I could jump from here and make it. And I'm thinking like, man, you're fucking old. Like you'll fucking shatter your knee. My other side of my brain is like, you could fucking do it. And I'm like, I could fucking do it. And I start like looking. And I'm like, well, what's the worst that could happen? Like I fuck up my knee or I do it. And then I'm just like, I'll just walk down this ramp and get up by the fucking ladder down at the end.
Are you talking about the flatbed trucks and
Yeah.
jumping off of it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because I don't want
Yeah,
to I just want to jump right down because it'd be quick. But I'm like, I don't know, man. Can my fucking knees handle this shit? Me just doing like a bounce and then landing on my feet, like flat footed and shit. And I'm like, ugh.
yeah. I used to do it when I first started at the company, and I used to load trucks. I used to jump off of the flatbeds, but yeah, I don't know if I would do it anymore, just because I am getting older, and God forbid I twist an ankle jumping down, or the shock of it, blows out my knee, or some other goofy shit. And
Yeah, it sucks getting old. Don't do it, people.
yeah, for sure, avoid it as much as you can. But speaking of getting old, man, I seem to be stuck in the my youth, and at the same time, moving forward. That I watched this documentary on Netflix. It was an episodic documentary, 6 episodes. It's called High Score. It's on
Hmm.
Netflix, and it shows a really brief glimpse as to the history of video games. Like the first episode goes into the Space Invaders, Pac-Man, the arcade craze, and kind of shows you a lot of that beginning and how it impacted and really got it going and got people really excited into video games. So it was really cool and nostalgia to see that, see the arcades, see how people were getting really excited for stuff like that. And it was just like the beginning arcades, like asteroids and stuff like that, and then
Right.
how that migrated over into like the Atari cartridges, and how they began to get ported over into Atari. And then but arcades just kept progressing and progressing and getting better and better. And like I think it was episode 2 goes into more of the advanced arcades like Donkey Kong and stuff like that, and how those games were not able to be migrated over to console gaming. So Atari couldn't handle it, and that's when it was the birth of the NES, and Nintendo came out with a system that was capable of playing Donkey Kong. And that was our first glimpse into Super Mario and how that went off and went crazy. But yeah, the documentary keeps going on and on. Another episode goes into the Sega Genesis and how that got created to create competition for Nintendo. The fighting craze with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat is in another episode, talking about how that kind of
I lived
brought in.
through that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it was a big part of us when we were growing up and going to the arcade, and that was a place where you can battle one on one with your friend, and it was just really exciting. And then the last episode goes into 3D gaming, how that became a craze, like Star Fox, the first like big 3D game for Nintendo, along with Wolfenstein, Doom, and other games like that that kind of brought in that 3D perspective into games. But yeah, it kind of leaves off, and from my understanding, they're planning to come out with a part 2 of this. This just came out this year, so it's relatively new. And then part 2 would go on from there and kind of show some more of the future stuff, something more maybe modern to what kids would be familiar with today. But really cool, man. A lot of nostalgia, a lot of stuff that I remember as a kid, just watching it, and it was just a really cool view, and really suggested to a lot of people out there who were into gaming at all in their youth or at that time. It's a really cool nostalgia trip for sure.
Yeah, the Nintendo, um, yeah, that whole Sega when the Genesis came out, and like I don't think people understand. I mean, kids today or whatever. I mean, kind of like Xbox and PlayStation, but Sega came with that first 16-bit Genesis, and I'm to this day I remember the fucking commercial. Sega does what Nintendo can't, and with fucking Sonic and the speed and the graphics. And I mean that was a big fucking deal because I mean Nintendo was like the fucking man back then, and somebody to come up against it was shocking because I really didn't know too many people that had Sega. I think I knew a couple people. I mean, but everybody had fucking Nintendo because you never owned the Genesis, right, Danny?
No, no, it wasn't until I was like more of a teenager adult that I had more expendable money as I worked or whatever, that I bought a Genesis system, or I should say a Sega system, because I don't think it was Genesis. Um, but yeah, it wasn't really appealing to me. I was more of a Nintendo kid. But yeah, you're right. There was times that Genesis did come out with more of an adult game. That was like what they were leaning towards. So when I would see a friend of mine that had a Genesis, it did intrigue me to go over to their house and play it and check it out.
I mean, and that leads into the Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat shit. So Sega Genesis had the Mortal Kombat with blood, and the Super Nintendo didn't. And at the time, that shit was. I mean, when they ported over, it was like a big deal because you would go to the arcade, it'd be Street Fighter. I mean, you put your quarter up, you fight somebody at the arcade, till you could kick them out, and then Mortal Kombat came with their blood and gore, and that fucking overtook it. And I mean, that was fucking insane. And then when they ported over to the home systems, Nintendo took a stance like, we're not gonna have them with the blood. We're gonna edit it a little. And Sega's like, fuck, now we're giving it. It's what you see at the arcade is what you're gonna see at your and the Sega. And I think that like, they sold more. I don't remember the sales. I think that Sega that boosted their sales somewhat, and that game was massive for Sega, and Nintendo they struggled. And remember, there was always these rumors there was a code to open it up and all this shit, but it never came to fruition.
Right. Yeah, I think the only way you were able to get it was with Game Genie. You would put a Game Genie code and it wouldn't churn
The
it.
sweat.
Yeah, the sweat would turn into blood.
Yeah, it would be
But
red.
not blood, but it would be red. So the sweat
Yes.
would be red and look like blood, but it wouldn't be the actual blood of the character. So yeah, it was different, and I do remember that, man, very vividly. Being a Nintendo kid and just playing it, getting home, playing Mortal Kombat, and I was just like, oh man, this sucks. And then how Genesis kids would throw it in your face and be like, you got the one with sweat. He's like, I got the legit one with blood. So yeah, I do recall that. And Genesis, yeah, man, they were a big contender for Nintendo, and man, they pushed them. They pushed them hard. Maybe brought in some innovation that Nintendo maybe would have kind of rusted back on their laurels if Genesis wasn't there. So definitely made Nintendo a better system when Super Nintendo came out, and then especially when Nintendo 64 came out. So it brought upon some competition to where Genesis was a good part of the video game history to bring, you know, bring Nintendo to their game.
Yeah, they made them step up their game because I mean that console they didn't budge, but you could see on the 64 they dropped a couple mature games on there, and that was a big thing for them at the time. But yeah, it definitely Nintendo needed the competition.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but Genesis had the Sega CD, and they had Night Trap that had that chick from
Yeah,
Different Strokes.
different strokes.
Yeah, and it was a big thing, man. I mean, and all that stuff with that and Mortal Kombat. That's what brought on the I forget what it's called, ESAB or BA or
Rating board or
the
whatever.
rate, yeah, the rating board for video games. So that's what brought that upon us, where now video games are still rated to this day, and it's got an M for mature, T for teen and stuff like that to kind of tell you what kind of content's in the game. So it's cool. to see all that nostalgia stuff, and it really brought a lot of memories back for
Yeah.
me.
Didn't they just have an anniversary for the chick different? What's the name of that? Night Trap. Didn't they just have released like an anniversary edition or something?
Yeah, I
Or
think it
like
was.
was it
Yeah, it
like a
was.
couple years ago?
I think it was this year or last year. It was like the 25th or 35th anniversary or something like that, and they re-released it for PlayStation and Xbox, and they had a limited run of like hard copies. Otherwise, it was a digital game. But yeah, I was this close to buying it just because I
You want to
wasn't a
see
Genesis.
titties?
I wasn't a Genesis kid, so I didn't get to actually play it. I think Dave had a CD,
Yeah,
a
we had a
Sega,
friend that had it. Yes, he had
right?
the new Sega CD, and like there was two, two models, the big one with the old school, and then the new one like looked like a fucking CD player that pops open from the top, and that thing played CDs. We were like music CDs. We were like,
Right.
whoa, man, this shit's awesome.
Right, right. So I never got to play it, but I saw some videos on it before I was gonna pull the trigger, and then I was just like, nah, man. I could tell that I would only play this thing for like 5 minutes and then just be like, forget it. I'm not gonna keep playing this
I
thing.
played it. Dave had it. I remember playing it, and it was clunky and slow, and then it wasn't smooth. I wasn't like yeah, with the graphically and the movie shit was awesome, like the little movie snippets, but it wasn't like I was like, God damn, like I gotta go buy a Sega CD and fucking buy a bunch of Sega Genesis Sega CD and buy a bunch of Sega CD games. I mean, graphically, yeah, it was good, and then you had moving like a fucking movie,
Yeah, like
but
full motion
full
videos.
motion video, and like, but after that is the gameplay kind of sucked.
Yeah, I mean the gameplay was. I mean, you're just basically pressing buttons when guys would be over a certain area to pull off a trap and stuff
Yeah,
like that. And then you
yeah.
got to move your camera around to different perspectives and different rooms to see what's going on there. So yeah, a lot of it was not the greatest, but it was just that it was new and it was different and it was more adult themed, so it was really intriguing. But speaking of adult themes, Andy, and ratings and censorship and stuff like that, let's jump into our article of the week. So our article this week, Andy, it's actually one that you picked up. So you're gonna fill us in a little bit more on this, but it's about Adult Swim pulling some episodes of Boondocks and Aqua Team Hunger Force off of their streaming sites just because they're trying to censor or trying to some of these more sensitive episodes and pull them off of Adult Swim. Why don't you fill us in and let us know some details on this thing?
So I'm a big fan of the Boondocks. I love them. The Gruber, the creator. I mean, it's a great fucking show. It makes a lot of social commentary, even back from the early 2000s. And I think with HBO Max, they signed a deal. I remember reading late last year that it's coming back for HBO Max. And HBO Max, which is a Warner Brothers, AT&T, they come up with their streaming platform. They own Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, all that those channels. Boomerang. If you have HBO Max, I do because I have AT&T mobile plan and it's part of our thing. They have like the DC. There's tabs DC, Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, and so when I went on there, I'm like, all right, sweet. They got Boondocks. I watched some of them, and then like this article dropped the 29th. There was rumors that they already HBO Max already pulled Gone from the Wind movie because they had some racial overtones that they didn't like. They got kind of scared and they yanked it. I think it's back on now, but it has like a warning or something.
Right, a warning at the start of the movie before it starts
Yeah,
playing.
and so Adult Swim is on HBO Max. They have Boondocks and Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Now I never really watched Aqua Teen Hunger Force, but I know it does have like a big found. They even had a movie launch in the theaters back in the day. So they started yanking some of these episodes. Some people on Reddit started noticing that Episodes were fucking removed in June. So the episode Aqua Teen Hunger Force and the Boondocks. The episode in question for Aqua Teen Hunger Force is Shake Like Me, and the Boondocks episode, The Story of Jimmy Rebel. Uh, they got removed or retired, as they're calling it. Uh, Let me see. The Aqua Teen Hunger Force episode features one of its characters performing African American stereotypes, while the Boondocks installment sees the series regular performed with famed racist country singer.
I wonder if that country singer was real
No, it was
because
just they're making fun of somebody.
okay, so they just made it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I was kind of mentioning before we started recording, I had never seen that episode, and you're the one that kind of introduced me to Boondocks and got me kind of hooked watching that because you know, looking back at it now, it is kind of racist and kind of difficult to watch in a more modern eye now. Just because some of it is kind of sensitive and kind of stuff you don't really talk about anymore. But watching it back then when it first came out, I thought it was the funniest stuff I've ever seen. And it did have a lot of episodes that were kind of cringeworthy. And this one I don't recall seeing. I remember I thought I had seen every episode of Boondocks, and when I went to look at this episode to kind of get a feel for this article that you had picked, I I started watching it and I'm like, I don't remember this episode. So I'm kind of wondering wherever I started watching Boondocks, had they pulled it off even before then, so that I had never even seen this episode. And it's not only Adult Swim. I know Disney, when they picked up Fox, they did some episodes of The Simpsons the same way, right?
Yeah, they're starting to nitpick some of the episodes being removed. I know, like
The Michael Jackson one.
the Michael Jackson, and they're talking. I mean, not talking, but one of the big controversies now. I mean, the last couple years is Apu being played by the voice actor is Hank Azaria, who's a white gentleman, and they started using him less and less on the new series on the new seasons, and he's a prominent character now. They don't even talk about him, he don't exist, and there people feel like that's gonna get pulled because that's offensive. You got Lenny and Carl. Carl's a black man, and The Simpsons is voiced by a white actor. So they hired a black voice actor to play him now or voice his character. So, I mean, this is serious shit. To me, yeah. I mean, that's kind of rough, but it is what it is. I'm not really offended by it. Like Bumblebee Man, they're making fun of El Chapulín Colorado, and they're fucking. You don't see that character no more. You don't see and the Simpsons. You don't see the Italian guy at the
The
Mamma
mobster.
Mia. Yeah, and is the at the restaurant and shit. I mean, people, it's a fucking joke, man. I mean, it's not. I mean, some of it is, some of it isn't. But to me, that's. I mean, I don't know if Italian people find that offensive or not. It's just like a running stereotype joke that's been in show business like fucking forever.
Yeah, like I've never found like Speedy Gonzalez to be racist
Yeah.
or offensive to me. I always enjoyed it when I was a kid, and even as an adult, when I rarely see it because they don't really show it anymore. It doesn't really offend me. To me, it's fine. I mean, it's just a joke, and if you don't like the joke, then just don't support the
I
media.
mean, for older stuff, like I get it. It was obviously it was much worse, but that's just a product of that time when that stuff was made. It doesn't make it right then, no, but it's part of that theater or fucking movie. But I mean, I agree. That means you're never gonna fucking show it again. Like, again, back to the article, the move comes around the same time HBO Max began introducing proper context introductions for movie titles such as Blazing Saddles and Gone with the Wind. I mean, they're Blazing. I don't know if you ever seen Blazing Saddles, Dan. That fucking
No,
movie's straight offensive. It's
is
funny
it?
as hell. Yeah, dude, watch it. It's
I've never seen
hilarious.
it. Yeah, I've never seen it.
And I mean, but that's the whole movie. It's like offensive, like to everyone. They have a black sheriff and they make fun of it in the movie. Like it is what it is. But you know, See, and then Adult Swim came out. When Adult Swim transitions to series to a new platform, we determine what episodes are selected through our creative and cultural filters and our standards and practice policies. Oftentimes, these decisions are made in collaboration with the show creator. So Aaron McGruber, if you don't know, this guy he's African American. He's always made social commentary. I'm pretty sure he was. I think he came out and said no one's ever reached to him. So it's just it is what it is, man.
I kind of agree with the of having an introduction kind of plastered on episodes like this, or content that might be considered to be insensitive, and put it out there. Keep the episodes out there so that people can see it. It's a different time, man. It's like the Song of the South from Disney. I think they should release that and put like an intro and just be like, hey, this might be insensitive to some people, just to let you know, viewer discretion is advised. Just like when you would watch shit on TV that's on live broadcast network that might be a little offensive to some people because some people are more sensitive to violence than others, you would have that introduction like, hey, this might be offensive, viewer discretion is advised. And they should do the same thing for things that are culturally possibly insensitive to some people. Put that moniker at the start and just let people know that, hey, if you are sensitive to stuff like this might, trigger you or whatever the thought is. But I think that is the approach rather than censoring it from being in existence ever again.
I know. I remember reading. There's in the Boondocks. There's an episode where they make fun of Tyler Perry. They have a character like Tyler Perry, and in the character in the show, he's gay, and that got yanked off of the reruns portions when they were air reruns on Adult Swim, and I think it only aired twice. I remember reading about this, and it got pulled because supposedly Tyler Perry made a stink about it, and they yanked it. And so this goes back to what I've talked a lot on the podcast about throughout our fucking years. People laugh and shit, make fun of me. The streaming platforms are great, but as soon as something's controversial or something is not to what the standards of that platform is, shit gets yanked. They don't want nobody to see it. That's why you must, I've always talked about, buy physical media. All these episodes are on DVDs or Blu-ray. I don't think the Boondocks on Blu-ray. Aqua Teen Hunger Force, The Gone with the Wind, and all that shit is, they can't take that away from you unless they come and fucking take it away from you at your house. But the streaming stuff is awesome. It's great. It makes it easy to play and flip. But when shit like this happens, I remember talking about this on one of our podcasts years ago. And I remember seeing this, reading about it for a long time when Kindle and all that and the tablets started getting hot with digital publishing of the books. As soon as something controversial would pop up, they would yank it. They would let no one purchase it, and they were even going as far as deleting it from your fucking tablet or your library of downloaded stuff after you purchase it. So there's always been some controversy about this and some issues with it. That's why I've always been a big proponent. Just buy the fucking the DVD, or if you buy the digital stuff, I even feel that's scary. They could go in there and just yank it from your hard drive or your library or your cloud thing or whatever.
Yeah, I know it happened even in video games. I had not purchased it because it was free, but there was this game called PT that Konami released. I played it. It was cool. I really enjoyed it, but it has something where now it's removed from the store, so you can't download it. But if you had it, you get to keep it. But as soon as you delete it off of your hard drive, you are unable to reattain it on forever.
Yeah.
So there are some PlayStations that are out there in the wild that are sold on eBay, and if they have on it PlayStation with PT on it, it sells for more money because there's some people that want it that bad that they're willing to buy a new PlayStation just to have this game. So it happens, man, where publishers or whatever, they pull content and now you're stuck.
Yeah.
You don't have it.
I mean, in the platforms, they have some control. I get it. They pay big money, but it's going now. Shit's offensive, man, and it's always going to be offensive. Like, look what Joe Rogan's going right now with his podcast on Spotify. There's a big fucking issue with that. I mean, they're trying to, I don't want to say censor, but they're trying to rein in some control on, like, I was reading that if he gets a guest, they want to see what they're going to talk about and all this shit, and they're threatening to walk out the Spotify people. I mean, it is, the big tech companies, we're beholden to them, like on YouTube too. On YouTube also, there is a big, some of the content creators, they're having issues with YouTube demonetizing them, especially if it's political talk going a certain way. And if you mention certain words, they're like, you're not going to make money off of this. And that's their only means of income because they put their heart and soul into channels. And I don't want to say it's scary, and I get it. YouTube is that platform, the biggest one on the block, but there's other ones, but you're not going to make whatever income you were making on YouTube on those other platforms. No matter how hard you try, it's just YouTube is fucking king because they were the first one, and they're the ones ruling it, and you got to obey by their rules because, that's what's going on right now. Unless you create your own thing, and God bless you, and good luck with that, because it's going to be hard to take down those tech companies. I
think that's
just difficult. Yeah,
I think it's a little different in YouTube just because it's a independent company, which they could make whatever rules they want, and then you either have to abide by them or go to another platform. Now I get what you're saying. They have a huge footprint in the internet society, so I get that, but it does not impede somebody else from creating another platform that would give you the same service as a YouTube minus the threats of demonetizing you. So they have the ability to combat stuff like that. But like media here, where these episodes are taken away, what else do you do? This is the company that owns the rights to Boondocks. Where do you go to find this unless you find it in some kind of illegal means? Legally, there is nowhere else you can go. I can't go to Hulu and just be like, yeah.
I mean, you got to buy the physical media because I know it's going to get harder and harder. They can't take that away from you yet, but who fucking knows? I mean, but I know the platforms, they have much more control than people realized early on. They got like, oh, cool, I got access to all this shit. And then once you start delving into shit, you're starting to see like, oh, this is not on here. Oh, and then they're like, well, this shit was offensive. And you're like, so, Andy, okay.
What's the solution here then for shit like this?
I mean, if we're in America, free speech, people gonna say shit that's offensive. And the solution is saying like, take them down. That's not a solution. They have the right to say the dumb shit that they want to say as much as you have the dumb shit that you want to say. If you're silencing one people or certain peoples, you're not getting the whole fucking story. And when it comes to entertainment lately, there's always been an issue of shit being controversial, but ultimately the final decision, it used to be they would put it out, people would buy it, watch it, go to the theater, whatever. You had the final say if you're going to watch it or not. But taking shit away, not making it accessible, man, that's not cool when it already aired on TV or on cable. Yeah, that's kind of weird. I mean, you just you're letting someone else have the control. You're not in control. And like, there's always been controversial entertainment when it comes to movies and shit like that. If you don't want to see it, don't see it. Like, when we used to go to conventions, then the comic book conventions, you see all those bootleg tapes and DVDs. The one that always intrigued me was the Band 11. You remember that? Those Band 11 episodes that were made by Warner Brothers in the early like 30s with these episodes are never going to be aired on TV because
Right. It was like
they
World
had
War II propaganda.
stereotypical African American stuff,
Right.
Africans and the World War II stuff with the Japanese.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, that shit's it's fucked up. But I get it. Don't make it. If people want to see it, they're gonna go and find it. And that shit, like, yeah. I mean, it wasn't right, but
So are these Boondocks episodes now going to be at those conventions on a tape where
or
somebody could
if you
buy them?
search for Boondock DVDs, I think they went up a little bit if you're trying to flip them. So, I mean, they went up a little bit, and I mean, I think they're out of print, to be honest with you.
You have this
Yeah,
CD?
I got the DVDs. Eric Magruder, dude, he is. I don't agree with everything he says, but he does take he does take a stance on social commentary that is not always popular, especially among the African American community, because he likes to
Push the button. He likes to push it.
he likes to push
Yeah.
their buttons within his community,
Right.
and it's not always the most popular one, but being right is not always popular. So I mean,
Right.
it's
Well, I
not
think
easy.
that's what sells
Yeah,
sometimes is controversy. I mean, it's to push the envelope to get as far as you can to see how much you can push, swear to the limit of what they allow you to by whatever rating board. So it's always trying to do more, 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 and it goes into a little bit what we were talking about with Mortal Kombat. It's about pushing it as much to get more mature, and that stuff does have an audience. But I do understand the sensitivity of it. So I just think, just like everything else, there should be some type of moniker or some kind of notation to let people know that, hey, this content is in this. If you're cool with that, then keep going forward. If you are sensitive or have issues with this content, then this is your time to pull out and not watch it or not experience it. So I think that's the route it should go. I don't believe it should be pulled, but hey, I'm sure everybody has differences of opinions, and we want to hear them, man. Send them to ffnquestions@gmail.com. But that's about it for today, man. We'd like to thank you all for listening. Remember, follow Freeform Network on Facebook and Twitter at Freeform Network. Go to our webpage, freeformnetwork.podbean.com. You're going to see all of our buttons for a bunch of different providers for podcasting. Go to the one that you like, the one you enjoy. Hit that subscribe and like button. It really helps us out. We upload into YouTube as well, so visit us there. And we just have a bunch of different places. I'm sure one of them is to your liking. But for Freeform Radio, I got Andy.
it's all good, man. Remember to buy physical media. It can only help. Or one day we'll have all these episodes for sale on a flash stick.
Right. And my name is Daniel. I'd like to thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next time.
That was cool, Dad.